Hello and welcome to the Multicultural AFL Football TV show. Round number 12 was quite sensational. Richmond were decimated by the Cats on Friday night. The Blues came back from 37 points down to give the new coach David Teague victory over the Lions. North Melbourne made it 3 in a row at the expense of the Suns, and Adelaide won in the last 5 minutes of the game against the Giants. All this and more tonight. I am Vanessa Gatica and I'm joined by my two co-panelists, Javier Sincang and Gabriel De Angelo. Hello guys.
Hello, Vanessa.
Vanessa, Javier.
Round number 12 kicked off last Friday night from the MCG with Geelong failing to kick a goal in the first quarter but managed to kick 7 in the second to decimate the Tigers. Javier, what did you make of that?
I believe they just left a huge statement on the whole AFL that they are very serious contenders, and the way they're performing at MCG, I believe if they get preliminary final at home, I think that might be the discussion coming on later on.
Yeah.
But I don't think they mind too much the way they're playing at MCG this year. So all the fans, all the people who are booing Gary Ablett at the moment, I think that's just making him more energetic, and all the players, like they, especially from the tackling pressure that Richmond had at the first quarter, they didn't just come out of it, they just totally demolished them. And then that's probably, this was a match where Richmond really felt that they're missing few players, few good players. Yeah. So it was like all Geelong show, and then getting into a bye with that kind of a game, I believe they've just done fantastic. And Richmond, like, I mean, we don't know about them. Sometimes they're playing good, but sometimes they're really sort of playing bad. So it's a very weird season for them at this stage. But let's see what's in store for us in the coming matches.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think that this game was a huge wake-up call for Richmond in the sense that, yes, even though they've got a few players who are out of injury or not in form, they should have done at least a little bit better against Geelong. They should have been much more competitive against Geelong. We've said this before about how Geelong, even though Gary Ablett might be away, there's still someone that could fit his place without any problems, and Geelong just kept rolling along as if nothing had happened. With Richmond, with that game, it seemed like they're far from Geelong's level at the moment. And it's a huge wake-up call for a lot of other clubs, because Geelong, they reminded me of how they played under Bomber Thompson, where they were just so amazing, where nobody could just touch them. And it seems like Geelong, as you said, I mean, we can probably pencil them in for a top 4 this season, you know, and they could go all the way, maybe even win it with the way they're going. But yeah, Richmond, they should have done much better than that. We all thought Geelong were going to win, but not by that much.
Saturday at Marvel, the Brisbane Lions were thrashing Carlton 40 points to 3. With the Blues failing to register a goal in the first quarter and halfway through the second. Then the big comeback to win 15 points in the end for Carlton's second win of the year. Gabriel, has there been a game plan change for the Blues, or did the Lions drop the ball?
I think what Chris Fagan, the coach of Brisbane, said was pretty much spot on. He said in the press conference that Carlton had been in most of their games for most of the season, like the game against Hawthorn, which they could have won in Tasmania, etc., where Carlton played really well throughout most periods of the game, and then they just faltered at the end for whatever reason. And he was saying that this was that game where they just needed that win, that one performance to sort of spark them and kick them into life. And I think a lot of people have sort of blamed Brendan Bolton a little bit too much, and we did say that Carlton seemed to be this team where there are signs of life, there are signs of improvement, even though they're last and they're losing, but there is signs of hope. And Chris Fagan said that in the press conference. So I think it wasn't necessarily a case of David Teague making all these amazing or different changes to the whole scene of the Carlton game plan, but more so that belief that they could win and that they can win, and they did. And Carlton did play really well, and they should have won, you know, many other games during the season as well. But congratulations to Carlton. It was a great job.
Yeah, I believe so. I hope what you said is true, that Carlton has sort of found a little bit of a spark after this game. And it's just not that when we say the new coach comes in the first match, they have to win. But I believe there's going to be a huge test coming on now, because everyone knows how crucial is Patrick Cripps. We've seen Sav Walsh and others couple of other players performing well. But he's been really pivotal. And we've seen against Essendon, when they were able to shut down Crepes, Carlton couldn't do much in that game. So that's going to be a big factor. So if he's going to get shut down, no matter what the coaches think, because John Washfall, he changes his views as well, because he never used to tag. But in that game, he tagged and it worked. So I'm assuming next week, they've got Bulldogs, I think, and other games that are coming up, they're going to tag Cripps. That's where we really would say that whether the new coach has made any effect, and what are the real deal? Are the real 22 people like who are contributing at the moment, or it is just that couple of superheroes, I would say, for Carlton that are doing the job at the moment?
Well, it was a foregone conclusion at the Gold Coast, with the Kangaroos winning easily over the Suns, and the Adelaide Crows just managed to surge ahead of the Giants in a tight game that was only decided in the last 5 minutes. How good was Eddie Betts?
Well, Eddie Betts have to be good. Every year he comes up with something, and then we just get mesmerized with the way he playing. And good thing was for Adelaide, Josh Jenkins, he scored a couple of goals too. So that was good comeback. So overall, I think Adelaide have done better than GWS, and that's largely because they've got some belief. And the huge question is, are they just getting into form? Are they just getting into like right at the right time? So it is quite dangerous for the other teams.
Yeah, Adelaide, they're a very schizophrenic side. They do really, really well one day and then really badly the next. So we'll see what happens, how they go in their next game.
We will be back to discuss the big game at the SCG on Sunday night and the Big Freeze sponsor traditional clash between the Pies and Demons from the MCG on Queen's Birthday Monday after the short break. You are watching the Multicultural AFL Footy Show. Welcome back. Guys, the Sydney Swans crushed the West Coast Eagles at the SCG once again. In fact, the Eagles have not won at that ground against the Swans for 20 years. Also, what were your thoughts on the traditional Big Freeze clash from the G last Monday afternoon?
Well, I'll start off with the Sydney and West Coast game. It was a big surprise because we thought that West Coast were going to be much more competitive than what they were. I thought they were actually going to win that game. That was the first time in 3 games where Sydney beat West Coast by more than 2 points, because the last 3 games Sydney have defeated West Coast by about 2 points or less. So it was a big, big victory for the Swans. They did play very well, but it seemed like West Coast, with that performance, that when they play away, they're a bit flat. They're not as strong as they are at home. And last season, they won away as well. They were doing really, really well away from home. But this time around, they're not the same team, and there's not a lot of injuries, or there's not a big change to the style of play or anything like that. So I can't understand why they're playing the way they are away. What's different about them? But it was a good victory for the Swans. And Collingwood against Melbourne. Well, Melbourne, as Tim Watson said during the telecast on the Monday night, he said that Melbourne were the worst skilled side in the competition. That they seem to be in a crisis. Like, there really is nothing more to say about Melbourne. That they seem to be in a crisis. I don't know if it's a crisis of confidence, or maybe Goodwin's not the man for the role, for the job. I don't know. But they're missing a lot of set shots. They sort of remind me of St Kilda a little bit, where they get so many chances and they miss so many. It is amazing just how badly they're performing this season compared to last season, where they captured everyone's imagination. So I don't know what's going on with Melbourne, but it was a good, solid performance from Collingwood. Collingwood are going to be right, but Melbourne, I don't know what to make of them. They're just in a huge tailspin. Yeah,
although I beg to differ a little bit on West Coast, I believe they're still playing all right when they travel this year as well. However, I believe Sydney just played a good game. Buddy Franklin had his influence on that game, and Rampy, although I think Josh Kennedy scored 3 goals or so during the first half or so, but later on they were able to shut him down or so, and they were able to compete with them and come on top of West Coast in few departments. That's what led to Sydney's win. And the big thing is they won at SCG, so that will do their confidence a huge,
it's their
huge
home.
boost.
They should win at the SCG regardless.
But but it's not been happening that often. So that'll be a good boost for them. So with the West Coast, I believe they're playing good at MCG. We've seen that. So if it comes to the finals, I'm pretty sure they will be in the finals. I believe they're going to be very strong unless there are some injury issues or so. And that team is one of the favorites for me to win the title maybe. But the other one, Collingwood, we know that Collingwood is too strong, and especially if there's a team who's having that kind of woes where they can't even kick properly or so, and they're not going to be any match for Collingwood. With the Melbourne, the sad thing is their midfield is sort of doing the job, but it's just at the forward bit they can't score.
Yes. That's a great point.
Yeah, so that's
and the defence is very leaky. I mean, that game against Adelaide, that should have been over.
Yeah,
they should have won the game easily.
Yeah, there could be like a team where, okay, if your defense is back, but you score a lot of goals. You know, I mean, they've got everything. McNaughton, he's just sort of gone off the radar. I don't know what's going on with him. So Melbourne really needs to pull their socks up if they want to do something later on. But let's see what happens in the coming games. Yeah.
Round number 13 is another 6-game week to accommodate the byes for another 6 teams, which have the week of Brisbane Lions, Collingwood, Melbourne, Sydney Swans, and West Coast. All take a holiday this week. The tricky part, boys, is that we have teams playing that come off bye and teams yet to have their bye. First, let's look at tonight's encounter between the Adelaide Crows at home and the Richmond Tigers. Can the Tigers bounce back from the horror loss last week?
I believe they can. Look, I've
seen.
Yeah, I think they can. The reason is we've seen that whenever they have a loss, they come back stronger, and I think they've done that to Port Adelaide as well. Yeah. They went over there and they had a very good match. So I don't think they will carry that confidence with them as well. And then the factor is going to be, I think we're not sure yet that if Dustin Martin is playing. If he goes out, then I believe it's going to be very hard for them. On the other hand, as we said before, is Adelaide picking at the right time? And if they are, then Richmond's not going to be any match to them. With Eddie Betts' goal, like it did last time, I think they are going to be too strong for Richmond. But I have that slight feeling that they will be competitive at least in this game. It won't be like a written off to me.
Ooh, I don't know about that. I think that Adelaide at home are going to be very strong. Eddie Betts in front of his home crowd is just too good, and I really like Josh Jenkins. I actually think he's a very underrated player. I think he's really, really good, but I think Adelaide at home, they're just going to be way too strong. I think this is going to be the real test to see where Adelaide are at the moment, because if they win this game, which I think they will, and I think they're going to win pretty comfortably, because Richmond at the moment, they're just not the same team. And even if Dustin Martin is back, he's still not up to the form that he was when he won the Brownlow medal. And there are a lot of times where, even during this season, where a lot of the other teams have sort of gotten his game plan. They've gotten the way that he plays, where he does that don't argue. They know how to stop him now. So he's not as influential as he once was. He's a good player and all that. I'm not saying he's bad, but he's not as influential as he was. And I think that Richmond, that they have lost a bit of that spark. And even though they have that propensity to bounce back after defeat, I just don't think that they're going to do it against Adelaide. Adelaide at home, with all their guns blazing, I think they're going to be just too strong.
Yeah, but there's other factor as well, that Richmond, because the fact they bounce back as well, that's the problem. That might be the thing where which can make them stronger.
Yes, but I don't think so.
Friday night footy comes from Marvel Stadium, where Essendon met Hawthorn, with both teams coming off a bye. Who will win this one? And they are both fresh from a week off, Gabriel?
I don't know. I really don't know with this. This one's a hard one to pick. I honestly don't know. I think that they're both sort of similar in the sense that we're expecting much more from both teams than what they've been giving so far. But because it is at Marvel, both sides know Marvel very well. They're both sort of similar in all the other areas that I've been saying earlier. And there is that sort of sense that this one really could go either way. It really genuinely can. It might even end up in a draw. We don't know. But I think just on the performance from the last few games, I think that Essendon are slowly getting there. They're slowly starting to improve a little bit more than what Hawthorn is. Hawthorn have had their moments where you think, wow, this isn't the Hawthorn that I remember. The performance against Carlton where they just made it, and when they lost against the Bulldogs. Whereas Essendon, they're just slowly building it. They're not as good as what we thought they were going to be, but they're slowly getting there. And if McDonald, Tip and Woody, if he behaves, if he's playing on form, he's just hard to stop. So I think Essendon for me.
I believe it's going to be Hawks for me. I think it's going to be a very close encounter there. But I believe just in the close ones, I just give Alistair Clarkson an edge. That's all.
Thanks, guys. We will be back after the short break with more of round 13 comments and tips, so stick around. We are back again. 3 games on Saturday. The Gold Coast Suns go head-to-head with St Kilda from Riverwaite Stadium, Townsville. Fremantle takes on Port Adelaide from Optus Stadium in Perth, and Carlton play the Western Bulldogs on Saturday night from Marvel Stadium. Carlton, on a roll, met the Bulldogs, who are coming back from a bye, remembering that the Blues have beaten the Dogs this year already. And on Sunday afternoon, North Melbourne met the GWS Giants in Hobart. Your thoughts, Kevin?
I think that these games are actually generally going to be interesting. Like on paper, probably not so much, but with the circumstances that are going on these past few weeks, they're actually going to be interesting. St Kilda versus Gold Coast, even though Gold Coast played really badly against North Melbourne, that was just appalling the way they played. I think playing in Townsville, they're used to the conditions, they're used to that sort of environment. I think that they're going to be too good for St Kilda, especially seeing as St Kilda have too many injuries and they just seem to be in a tailspin at the moment. I think that if they lose this game, then there'll be pressure on Alan Richardson, definitely. I think that the way they're going, I just don't know if he'll survive the season. I think he might be the next one to go, unfortunately, because it is his livelihood. Fremantle and Port Adelaide, that's going to be an interesting one because I think that Fremantle, they're flying under the radar. They're doing really, really well at the moment. I think that at home they should be too strong for Port Adelaide. I wouldn't be surprised if Port Adelaide might make it competitive. I don't think they're going to win, but I wouldn't be surprised if they do make it competitive against Fremantle. But who knows what can happen? Who knows, maybe if Walters can do another miracle goal in the last second again, make it 3 in a row. But I think Fremantle at home should be too strong. Carlton and the Bulldogs, that's going to be interesting because Carlton, they're on a high after the victory against the Brisbane Lions. Who knows what can happen, and especially seeing as the Bulldogs are coming off a bye, and teams that come off a bye generally don't do that well when they play the following week. So I think that Carlton, they have a chance to win this, and I think that they might actually pull off an upset against the Bulldogs. I think that Carlton could win that game. And the game against the Kangaroos and GWS, even though it's at Tasmania and that they're used to playing at their ground and all those sorts of conditions, I think that GWS, they might be a bit too strong for North Melbourne, even though they have impressed me a lot. These past 2 games, the one against Gold Coast and the game before that, I think North Melbourne have changed a lot. I don't think they're going to win against GWS, though. I think they're going to be a little bit too strong for the Kangaroos. Yeah,
with the North Melbourne game, I believe they just need like emotional pull at the moment or emotional push at the moment. The first game they won was when their coach was leaving. Then they had a new coach, and the last game they won, Jack Zeeble had the 200th game. So I think they probably need an emotional side to it. If they can find that, I believe they might win this one. But GWS Giants, I think they will be out there to make a statement that night. And it's going to be a good test for North Melbourne, like if they're real deal or not, because has that actually made a difference, that new coach? And would be really interesting to know and see his strategy that he comes up with against GWS Giants, like that they're so formidable this year. And the other one, I think you hit it right on the spot, where St Kilda had got too many injuries. And I would say that Stuart Dew will take this opportunity to really bring back that spark, which has sort of lost in a few games. So he will try and get this opportunity to add a spark, and then so that they can come back into the good performances. And Fremantle at home, I believe, they're going to be too strong for Port Adelaide. Port Adelaide hasn't been travelling too well, so they're playing all right, but now I don't think they will be that good to beat Fremantle. And with the Carlton and Dogs, I think that's going to be an interesting one, as you said. I believe a lot of the game would be won and lost in the strategy, though. How the Bulldogs are able to stop them. If they can, I don't think Carlton will win this one, because if Patrick Cripps get shut down, as we mentioned before, there is a huge chance of other team winning. So let's see what's the strategy Bullock Beveridge comes up with.
Guys, who from the bottom 14 teams have a chance of making the 8 by September?
I believe Fremantle's got a good chance at the moment. I think the way, as you mentioned, that they are flying under the radar at the moment, so they might surprise a few teams this season. So they definitely have a chance. Essendon, they have a chance too, but they really need to bring their game up a bit. And Sydney is like a team. It's really hard to keep them out of the finals.
Yeah, true.
So and we can see that thing happening with them beating the West Coast. I believe they've got a good chance of coming in as well.
Yeah, there are quite a few teams that you can say could like spring a surprise and make it. You just said it, Fremantle, Essendon could possibly make it, Sydney, and you've also got Hawthorn. Hawthorn, even though they haven't been as strong as before, they might just make it. And if North Melbourne keep up this intensity and keep up this winning form, they might make it through as well. I don't think the Bulldogs, Gold Coast, St Kilda or Carlton are going to make it, so forget about them. But all those other teams definitely have a good chance. I think Fremantle probably, seen as the way they're going, and if they keep winning at home, they've got a really good chance of making it. But we'll keep an eye out on North Melbourne in particular, because they could spring a surprise.
Yeah, it's been a very good season this year, and it's quite amazing to see that many teams can still make it to top 8.
Yeah.
What a fascinating week ahead. Thank you, and that's all we have time for this week. You've been watching the Multicultural AFL Footy Show all around Australia on the Community Radio Network, Community TV, and on Aurora TV Foxtel. We are also online through the NEMBC's AFL Footy website. See you next week. I am Vanessa Gatica.
And I'm Harbi Singh.
I'm Gabriel D'Angelo.
Thank you for watching.